Well, with the current obsession of political shows, can Victoria find a way to stand out from the rest? Hey guys, come over the series premiere of the new PBS show, Victoria. This is Season 1, Episode 1, Doll 123, and Season 1, Episode 2, Ladies in Waiting. And guys, I really was very interested in this show, I have to say. I thought that it was quite interesting that we were getting another, show about the monarchy, because we literally just got that with The Crown. I definitely did find it quite weird that we have another one exactly at the same time as The Crown, because this show ran in the UK at the same time as The Crown was going. So I do find that a bit strange, the way that was done. I don't know if that was a coincidence or if that was, what they wanted to do, if that was intentional. I don't really know. But either way, I was very interested in the show for a bevy of reasons, and after watching it, I have to say, I don't think the show is as good as The Crown. I think The Crown is a more interesting show with more interesting characters, but I still really did love this premiere. I thought overall this was a really great show overall. There's a lot of interesting things going on here. It really shows you, things about the monarchy in that time and things like that, and let's just get into this episode because I really do want to talk about the show overall, what I thought of it, and because I'm reviewing 2 episodes, if you guys are wondering, I won't give my grade for the episode till I am done with both episodes. So I'll give my grade both episodes, and then I'll give my grade of the premiere overall. So I'm going to do it that way. But let's just get into it. I definitely do want to talk about the show overall. So we start off, and we see it's 1837, and we see that the monarchy is in crisis. William IV is sick, and he's retreated to Windsor, and the heir to the throne is his teenage niece, Alexandrina. Then, that was Victoria's name then, and she goes to bed one night, a sheltered young woman. She wakes up the queen, and Alexandrina meets the news of her uncle's death with more sparkle-eyed wonder than you'd expect from someone who just found out she'll have to lead her country. She seems somewhat happy about it, which is a little bit strange, but of course she does, and she's young enough not to know the full weight of this responsibility, but you can tell this is something that she's kind of always wanted to do. She's always wanted to lead the country, and immediately she's told that she's going to be the one to now be the queen, and that's very different from The Crown. That is the thing that's very different from The Crown, is that The Crown, it's her, process leading up to her becoming the queen. Here, she immediately is the queen, and there's not really a lot of time for her to prepare, and I thought it was interesting the way that the show immediately got into that. And still in her nightgown, we see Alexandrina receives the Archbishop alone, at least aside from her faithful dog Dash, and her independent streak upsets Sir John Conroy, comptroller and confidant to Alexandrina's mother, and the Duchess of Kent, Sir John likes to be kept in the loop, all the better to control you, and basically he's kind of like the primary villain of the show, and he uses a wolf who used the Duchess as a disguise, filling her head with self-interest, masquerading as concern. He's looming and slimy, and he smells an opponent in the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne. So immediately we're set up with really what the show is going to be, but now we get interested in one of the most interesting, but now we get introduced to one more interesting character of the show, and that being Lord Melbourne. So Sir John smells an opponent in the Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne, who arrives at Kensington Palace to make nice with the Queen, and Melbourne's tired of governing. He tells his friend he'd rather retire and contemplate the rooks, and, he really doesn't want to be in charge of it. He just kind of wants to be there, and he knows as well as she does that the rooks must wait, and it's fun to watch. I actually like seeing Rufus Sewell in the show, so far at least, play a character that's not, it's super controlling, and someone who's not a control freak. This is someone who kind of just wants to be there. He doesn't want to really be the head of it all. He doesn't really want to work a ton, and he thinks about birds, and the Queen needs guidance, though, and there's an immediate spark between the two of them. You definitely get the sense that they definitely could spark a relationship, but Alexandrina turns down Melbourne's offer of assistance, and her resolve doesn't last long. The next day, she's expected to receive each member of the Privy Council by name. She should have been trained for this sort of thing, but her Baroness Leithen, like her mother, is German. So there are holes in Alexandrina's education, because the German weren't as accepted back then. And Melbourne comes to her rescue, whispering everyone's title in her ear. And in a few days, she'd belatedly accept his offer to serve as her private secretary. For now, she has requests, and that is that she'd like to be known by her middle name, that, of course, being Victoria. And and that is how she came up with the name Victoria. And I thought it was kind of cool the way they did that. I like that this was Victoria's choice. You know, that's something you definitely see in this premiere, is that Victoria's very independent. You know, she doesn't let anyone tell her what to do. She does what she wants to do, and that's something I definitely really did like about her character. And she moves from Kensington Palace to Buckingham Palace, banishing her mother and Sir John to remote wing, mainly because she doesn't want Sir John there. Also, her mother is kind of standing in her way. And Buckingham has about 10 windows to Kensington's every one, which is so symbolic it's tending to think the designers had the show in mind. And Victoria tells Melbourne of her old dark home, but too much light can be blinding. And in her attempts to cut ties with Sir John, Victoria might be too quick to dismiss her mother's lady-in-waiting, Flora Hastings. Now, Flora spends all of her time with Sir John and the Duchess, but her motives seem quite pure. She comes from a long line of courtiers, so she knows people and customs that Victoria just doesn't really know. And when the young queen accidentally turns her back on the troops during a ceremony, Flora is the only person in her circle honest enough to tell her that she's made a mistake and that this isn't the right thing for her to do. And I really did like this character of Flora, and she offers Victoria what she doesn't know. But Victoria spots Sir John lurking around the corner and declines, just as she does when Flora draws up a list of reliable maids of honor, none of them above average height. And the whole country seems very concerned with how short Victoria is. They just feel that she's not really that powerful enough to lead this country. Did they really make the right decision in letting her, you know, lead all of London? Is that really the right thing for her to do? And I like that Flora is a character that has doubts. And sure, Victoria is willing to listen, but because of her sort of thing going on with Sir John, you know, she really does not trust Sir John at all. So that's really why Victoria isn't really willing to listen to her. This man who isn't bothered by her stature is this man, the Russian Grand Duke Alexander, who immediately gets very handsy with her. And at first I thought, oh, this is kind of a sweet scene, but then he started getting handsy and kind of seemed like he just wanted to fuck her, and that's the only reason why. And luckily, Melbourne does intervene. He steps in, arranges the rescue. Pretty heroic scene. I do like the way that Melbourne is very much kind of like the hero of the show so far, and he and Victoria share a dance, and despite of her mother's request, she takes it easy on the champagne. She has too much to drink and makes it clear how badly she wants to dance with him again. And you can tell she obviously has a crush on Melbourne. And I like it. I really do like where they're taking this relationship so far. I know it didn't happen exactly this way, but hey, I mean, they can really do what they want, honestly. I mean, as long as it's somewhat close, and as long as they get most things right, I'm fine that they gave Melbourne more to do. And he stays in his lane, suggesting Victoria call the night. But what happens to the ball, of course, is not today the ball, because Lazen spots what looks like a bump beneath Flora's gown, and this is when things start to get really dramatic, and things really start to take a turn here, because he sees this bump near her gown and plants a scandal in Victoria's head that Flora and Sir John shared a carriage together all the way from Scotland. They could possibly be having an affair. And I thought they were going to take this in this dumb direction that she got like an STD or something like that. Luckily, that's not what happens. So Melbourne tells Victoria to leave it alone. The problem with scandal is that the mud does not always stick to the right people, and where they took this is definitely the strongest element of this premiere. Like, the strongest element is Victoria's whole thing with Flora, how she's so invested in the fact that Flora had an affair and Melbourne's telling her to stay out of it. The way that this goes is very interesting, because the Queen arranged for a doctor, Sir James, to examine Flora, and the exam confirms that Flora is, in the doctor's words, Virgo intacto. Now, this is also, subsequently, while Flora is getting examined, we also see Victoria having her coronation. It's a very well done scene. You know, she's finally queen. You definitely get the sense that this is something she's wanted all her life. I mean, all her life she's been told what to do, and finally she now has access to everything, and she can make all these decisions, and it's just such a satisfying moment. They really did a great job at showing her happiness and showing how overjoyed she was to become queen, but also how sad it is with what's going on with Flora, because basically we find out that she is Virgo intacto, and Victoria, who's never seemed more sheltered, says that she is, you know, figures that she must be pregnant, and Melbourne clears his throat, says that the one generally precludes the other, and to make matters worse, Flora's bum is actually the result of a tumor, we find out. And as Flora's health declines, Victoria tries to make amends, but until now, she's never known a problem that can be solved with a fruit basket. And we get this great scene with Victoria and Flora, where Victoria's doing all she can to try to apologize for Flora and try to get her back on her good side. And Flora says that she is beyond Peaches, that a fruit basket is just not going to solve it, that there really is no saving her, and Victoria apologized genuinely for her mistake, and she seems surprised not to be immediately forgiven, because it seems like this is something where, she would just brush it off and forgiven her, she was a lady in waiting, but that's not what happens. Flores actually tells her to stop being polite, and she starts getting real to her. She tells her that being queen mother means accepting responsibility for her subjects, and they're not dolls to be played with. She can't treat them like these are just, girls in like, the best way to compare it is like girls in high school. She can't constantly treat them like puppets. She needs to treat them like actual human beings. And again, Victoria does not realize what a kind of a responsibility this is. And through Flora's death, this really makes her realize how hard of a job this is really going to be and what this is really going to mean for her to be queen. I thought this was just such a well done scene. Even though Flora did die very quickly, it was a very satisfying character that I think could have easily been left very unnoticed. But because of how great the action was and because of how much they focused on this plot, it was by far the most interesting and emotional aspect of this entire premiere. So after Flora dies, through what she said and also through, what happened with her, Victoria is almost frozen with guilt. And Jenna Coleman did such an incredible job in this scene where her reputation is completely on the line. Everyone's talking shit about her, saying that this is her fault and that, Flora was susceptible to death, which she was very susceptible to death, but they're blaming it on Victoria. They're saying, through what she did, that's what killed her. And she leans on Melbourne to find the strength to keep going. And at this point, she doesn't know if she wants to be queen anymore. And yeah, sure, she's only been queen for a little bit, but through what Flora said, I think it's really penetrated to her that this isn't going to be an easy job, that this isn't going to be something where she can just do whatever she wants. She needs to do things in a proper way, which is something she's really not used to doing. And basically, she apologized for her mistake. She seems surprised not to, basically, she apologized for what she did, and she leans on Melbourne to find the strength to keep going, which she knows something about, because we find out that Melbourne actually lost a son, and he has every right to tell Victoria that being booed isn't as bad as watching her child die. And it's this great scene where he tells her, he doesn't go that route. Instead, he tells the queen a sweet story about holding little Augustus's hand every night until he went to sleep, adding that when his son died, Melbourne couldn't see a point to his existence. Knowing and working with Victoria has actually given him a reason to continue. So, yeah, Melbourne was on the verge of suicide. If he had not met Victoria, he probably would have killed himself. And the way that these two are just bonding, I really do love. And he tells her if he can do it, so can she. She must smile and wave and never let them know how hard it is for him to bear. And it's just a really powerful scene overall. I really love the way that entire thing was done. And basically, we end the first episode with Victoria writing a note to Melbourne, telling him all about, how she's ready to take on this task and ready to be a queen, and that's the end of the first episode overall. Really great stuff, and that's, like I said, the end of the first episode. Now let's talk about the second episode, Ladies in Waiting. Now, I'm not gonna lie, because of how emotionally impactful and how great the first episode really was, the second episode, while it is a great episode, really did not compare to the first one. I thought it was definitely a good episode. Actually, it wasn't even great. It was a good episode, but I did not like it as much as the first one. And maybe it's because they gave us 2 episodes. I don't really think we needed it. I don't know why they combined the first 2 episodes, and they didn't even do a thing where, they transitioned to, the intro. They immediately went to the second episode, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit strange. I don't really know why they did that, but either way, I don't really know why we needed to. I think we could have easily gone with, with 1 episode, but again, that's just how it is. But basically, this episode, we see the closer Victoria gets to Melbourne, the more determined his opponents are to oust him, and Melbourne supports a bill to abolish slavery in the Caribbean. So the Tories take up the fight against it, and Victoria asks if there's anything she can do to help, but that only exposes how much political power she really doesn't have. And because, there are some things, as much as she is in control, she's not fully in control. Women still weren't as accepted, and there are some things that she just can't do, and she asks if she insists, and Melbourne says she cannot. She can advise, encourage, but she cannot insist. And the bill passes, but only by 5 votes, which Melbourne takes as a sign that he's actually lost control of the House, and because the Tories can smell weakness, his days as Prime Minister are in fact numbered, and Victoria is freaking out about this, and this is the part of the episode I wasn't really into. I thought Victoria handled this. I get that obviously she's kind of grief-strucken, and obviously, she's really relied on Melbourne, but the way she reacted, I really thought she overreacted here. She acted like a child because she wasn't getting her way, and I don't know. I get that Victoria's never really gotten her way, and that she's grown up in a harsh environment where everyone's told her what to do, and she finally gets a chance to, do something, but I don't know. This scene just didn't exactly work for me. But Melbourne suggests that she does ask the Duke of Wellington to form a new government. But Wellington, who seems like a kindly grandpa, says he's too old to be prime minister. Again, he directs her to Sir Robert Peel. So obviously, Duke of Wellington not really going to work out. And as things slip further out of her grasp, she goes rogue. She shows up at Melbourne's house, surprising him in his slippers. And Melbourne reminds her that she can't go around ignoring the peaceful transfer of power just to suit her interests. That's just not something she can do. As much as she wants to, she can't ignore, this transfer. That's her transfer of power, and she can't just do that, to her liking, and Victoria's going to have to work alongside with Peel. That's just how it's going to work. As much as she wants this to be a her thing, she has to work with him, and it's going to require some sacrifices, and I like that. I like that, again, they brought up that this isn't going to be an easy thing for Victoria to do, and to avoid the appearance of favoritism, Melbourne says he'll have to come to dinner less often, and she might also have to replace some of her ladies with Tories, and that does it, which is why the episode's called Ladies in Waiting. With Flora dead, she needs new ladies in waiting, and again, throughout this episode, Victoria realizes that, being queen, there are definitely certain duties that she needs to attend to, even if she's not really into it. She just kind of has to, because that's just the way it is. So Victoria meets with Peel, but she does refuse to replace any of her ladies with women connected to the Tory party, and somewhere in London, Melbourne then sinks further into his armchair. He pours another drink, and Peel might not be a charmer, but he isn't unreasonable either. He actually is willing to listen to Victoria, and when Victoria asks if he's trying to surround her with spies, Peel says he just wants her to appear to be friendly to all, and honestly, it makes sense. Victoria's reputation is not exactly the best right now because of what happened with Flora. This will get her to get people to like her more by seeing that she is a lot allying with the Tories, and that, she is going to bond with them, and she isn't about to give up the first friend she chose for herself, even if that is how it's always been done, and Peel can't lead the government without the Queen's support anymore. Then Melbourne can without parliaments, and it looks like Victoria does have the power to insist after all. So I thought it was interesting to see the way that he told her that she's not allowed to insist, but no, she did get through to him, and I think it's because she was reasonable about it, and she actually did present a good argument, and I like the way she kind of actually got what she wanted there. So Melbourne, who is probably excited to get back to his roots, tells the Queen that she made a mistake. If he forms a government now, critics will claim that he was pulling the strings in the whole scheme, and Parliament won't trust either one of them. So people are already questioning her sanity behind her back, and most of these rumors are courtesy of Victoria's uncle, the Duke of Cumberland, who wants the Queen to be deemed unfit so he can't serve as regent. And every time Victoria so much as screams at a rat, Cumberland is there whispering in someone's ear the Queen's wits have deserted her. So he's doing what he can to get all the bad intel and shit like that on her, and you definitely know that he's up to no good, but he only has the chess move, and Wellington can see right through it. He knows that Cumberland is up to no good, and he visits Victoria to ask her to appoint someone, just anyone, and at this point she refuses again to go into battle without her ladies by her side, and I like her loyalty here. I like how loyal Victoria is to these ladies. She handpicked every single one of them. She's not just going to abandon them. They wanted to be her ladies in waiting, and they are her friends. She's going to, be nice to them, and basically Wellington says that she was not aware that she was fighting a war because she is not a young woman, and basically the Queen replies that no one suspects her to tell her what to do, but she has to prove her worth every single day, and she cannot do it alone. So Wellington is impressed enough by the Queen and annoyed enough by Cumberland to do a little scheming of his own, and he tells Melbourne about Cumberland's false rumors and suggests the Prime Minister put them to rest. Now, fresh out of reasonable excuses, Melbourne actually agrees to serve Victoria again, and while Wellington rubs Cumberland's failed plan in his face, Melbourne helps the Queen unveil her official portrait, which might as well be twice her size, and Victoria misses she can manage unaided, but Melbourne already knew that, and I just really did like that scene. Again, I really like how triumphant this was for Victoria. But now we get back to those rats, because while Victoria's busy with upstairs affairs, events downstairs are just as dramatic. The staff doesn't appreciate working under the stingy Lazen, especially since everyone from dresser Mrs. Jenkins to Stuart Penji is selling palace supplies to make a profit on the side, and Penji is horrified to learn that Lazen wants to install gas lights, and when the palace is overrun by rats, he blames the gas, pressuring Lazen, who does seem like she's in over her head, until she agrees to make the switch. Yeah, it really did not seem like the best idea that they had gas lights, and Penji's a cartoon. Scrooge basically, he says that he's got plans for them, big plans like a misima of corruption. But Penji might not even be the most calculating, because we see Jenkins' new assistant, Miss Skegert, is polite to a fault, but there's something deliberate about it, like she's saving up favors for later. And the chef, Frank DeKelly, eventually recognizes Skirts as Skegert as from a house of ill repute. So we don't really know what that's really all about or what's really going on there. But that is the way this episode ends overall. But let's just get into this episode and what I think of the show so far and where I think we're going to go from here. So overall, guys, I definitely really did enjoy the show overall, but let's just get into the show, starting off with the acting. Because when it comes to these period dramas, I mean, PBS and Netflix, all those kind of shows, they like to go all out, and they definitely did with this cast. The cast here, I think, all are pretty great. There really is no one who's really doing a bad job. But really, the one reason I was most interested in the show, and the one person I was most interested in, was, of course, Jenna Coleman as our titular Queen Victoria, who I think is perfection in this role. I mean, she really did an incredible job of portraying this character. And she really did go all out, I have to say. You really do believe that she's 18 and that she is this character who, like I said, hasn't really gotten a say in anything all her life. She was pretty much, manipulated by everyone, and the way that people are so unsure about her, I think, is very interesting. The way that she's destined to prove them wrong and how independent she is, just everything about her. Jenna Coleman did an incredible job in this role. I'm very happy to see that she's continuing to do great work after, her short stay on Doctor Who. She was incredible as a character, but I think Victoria's a completely different character, completely, and I really love where she's headed with this character overall. I can't wait to see where she goes, and if she wasn't as good, I don't think the show would be as good. The show is called Victoria, and luckily Jenna Coleman knows how to hold this show together, because if she didn't, I think the whole show would fall apart, and because of how great Coleman really is, the whole show is elevated because of it. Now, a lot of the cast were not introduced in this first episode. There definitely were a fair share of people that were, like, Sir John or the Duke of Cumberland, who, I'm not gonna lie, didn't leave much of an impression on me. I thought they were good in the show, but they just didn't leave much of an impression on me in this particular episode. But I also was a wise choice not to have Prince Albert in this first episode. I mean, that's who's going to be, Queen Victoria's husband eventually, so I thought it was kind of weird that they didn't have him in this first episode, but I'm interested in seeing where he's going to go, because I'm sure he's going to be in the show eventually, but we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. But definitely the one character that I like the most out of everyone, as good as Jenna Coleman was, Rufus Sewell is so great as Lord Melbourne. I really do love this character. Just his bond with Victoria, and the way that these two rely on each other, and kind of like the similar circumstances that they both gone through, and really the way that, like I said, they kind of needed each other. I mean, Melbourne, like I said, would have killed himself if it wouldn't have been for Victoria, and I don't think Victoria would be as strong as she was. She would not have gotten over Flora's death if it hadn't been for Melbourne. And again, I know some people are upset that they did change the history, that Melbourne and Victoria maybe didn't have this type of relationship with each other, but I think it works for the most part. I think these two have such great chemistry that I'm completely fine with it. I love where the show is going with them. I love the way that he really has this confidence in her, even though he knows what it means to really be a queen. I think that's something that's very interesting overall, and I'm very interested in seeing where his character is going to go. I really do like his character so far. He really is fantastic in this show, and he definitely, besides Jenna Coleman, was the other person that really did stick out to me. Everyone else is great, but out of everyone, he really was the one that stuck out very, very well, and I really do love where this cast has so far, because they really are all pretty great. So the cast really is great here, but let's get to the directing and the writing, because the directing in the show is definitely spot on. This definitely feels very much like a period piece, and you definitely feel like you're in that time period. And they did that really well here. You feel like you're in the 1800s, and that is something that is different from some of the other ones we've had. The Crown, that took place in the 40s, and this one goes all the way back to the 1800s, and they do everything they can to make you feel like you're there. And I think they did that very well with the directing. The tone was very well executed here, and I definitely really did love the way that was done. I thought the tone was very well done there. But the writing to the show, again, is very, very interesting. What I really loved about the writing is really showing not just what it means for Victoria to be a queen, but how it really ruins her reputation, how everyone else really is viewing her, with just the smallest things like her name being Victoria, and oh, that doesn't sound royal enough, or Alexandrina didn't sound royal enough, or them trying to change her name, and them trying to, just get all this bad dirt on her because they feel she's just not, she is not, the right person to be queen. That's just not who she should be. She should just be this normal girl. I think is a very interesting arc, and I can't wait to see really where that's going to go. Such as, what's going on with, we know the Duke of Cumberland has this dirt on her. We know that Sir John as well is really not a fan of her, and I'm interested in seeing really where that's going to go. But the Duke of Wellington knows that they're up to no good. So that whole storyline I'm also very interested in. But also what's going on with, Victoria and Melbourne, because it really does not seem like they approve of this very much. And I like the way that Victoria is very independent in the way that she's outsmarting them. I think that whole storyline was very well portrayed. And the show really does show you what it means to be queen. But what I also love is that it does show that she can't just do whatever she wants. That was my one problem with the Pope, is that this is a guy who seems like he can just do whatever he wants, while Victoria very quickly is kind of, told to take a back seat and really think about what she needs to do, and realizing that she can't do whatever she wants because she is a queen, and, by being a queen, she does have certain duties that she needs to attend to. And I like that we really did see that here. I thought that was very well portrayed. The story in general, I definitely was very into. I really loved the story overall. It took a little while to get going, I will definitely say that, but I definitely really was into the story. I found it to be very interesting, and I thought they did a very good job with telling the story. And again, I don't know if it actually happened. I really don't know, as they said it did, but it really doesn't matter to me. I think the story was well crafted enough, and I definitely really did love that. My only problem this episode is because of Queen Victoria, the other characters, I just didn't feel like we had a ton going on with them. I think that definitely there were good characters here, like Sir John could be a very interesting character. Right now, though, I just didn't really get the sense of, the rest of the characters in the show. I just didn't really, Melbourne definitely was very well developed, but the other characters didn't feel like were as well developed as the other ones were, so I don't really know where they're going to go with that. But Flora as well, the girl who played Flora, I thought was definitely very well casted, and I love what she did here, and it was too bad to see her go. But overall, guys, also, the cinematography in the show is incredible. I mean, they really went all out with the budget here. You can really tell. And I don't know if this had the same budget as The Crown, but it very well seemed like it did. I mean, the costumes here are just exquisite to look at. It's a beautiful show. It's one of those shows you could watch with the sound off, and it would look amazing. And they really did a great job with crafting the cinematography. I mean, it's a show that's constantly fantastic to look at, and one that's hard to take you out of because it's just so incredible to look at the scenery in the show, and they did a really great job with that. The cinematography looks so great. The costumes are crazy, and I definitely really did love that. The score is great as well. I really do love the intro of the show of the Hallelujah. It's played many times throughout this first episode, but I really did like the intro overall. I thought that was very well done. And then the editing, I'm not sure why they did two separate episodes. They could have easily just done the first episode, and I think we would have gotten enough from the show. But I guess they did two episodes so they can introduce some of the other characters, like the Duke of Cumberland and things like that. But either way, guys, I really did love this premiere. I don't think this is as good as The Crown. The Crown was just a little bit more memorable to me, but I still really did love this premiere overall. And I am going to give the first episode of Victoria, Season 1, Episode 1, Doll 123, a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. Episode 2, Ladies in Waiting, would get a 3.5 out of 5, or a B. And overall, the premiere of Victoria, I am going to give a 4.5 out of 5, or an A-. So over, guys, my review of the season premiere of Victoria. Let me know what you guys thought of this series overall. Loved your thoughts in it. Where do you think the show really is going to go? Do you like this first episode? Do you care about what's going on in Victoria and Melbourne, even though it didn't exactly happen in that way? But that's this video. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the Shadow Hunters, and then we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.